Okay, we are recording. Hello again, everyone. This is Dr. Tim Newton with Inspire Movement PT. We are here with a special guest of ours. His name is Nick Kundrat. He is our latest guest in the series on health and wellness, local voices in health and wellness. And he is the author of, let's see here, there we go. Positively Type 1. Right, this is a book for type 1 diabetics. Positively Type 1, How Living with a Chronic Illness Can Be Your Most Powerful Motivator for an Extraordinary Life. It is a short but sweet book that is extremely relevant and packs a great punch. We're going to talk a little bit about that today and Nick's approach to health and wellness and what he has to offer and what he brings to the table. This is a rising star in the field of wellness, and it is a real privilege to have him here. Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
Tim, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
It is our pleasure. So I know that a lot of the people that are probably tuning in here and want to know a little bit more about your book might have type 1 diabetes or might have a child who was recently diagnosed, or it's a suspicion that they could have that condition. So talking a little bit about this book, I took it as sort of geared toward youngsters. That probably makes me sound even older saying that. Younger people who may be coping with this diagnosis. And it's something that just sort of offers them inspiration. Can you just tell us a little bit about what this book is all about, in a nutshell, and how you came to write it?
Yeah, sure. So the beginning of the story kind of starts when I was 4 years old and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So obviously as a 4-year-old, that's a pretty scary thing. And I don't really remember a whole lot of it being so young, but obviously, diabetes has been such a huge part of my life. I mean, it's literally a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week thing that you're constantly dealing with. And so in this world of diabetes education, I guess you could say, diabetes burnout is a really common topic, which is kind of like essentially when you get exhausted and burnt out of dealing with your condition, because it is, from the time that you wake up, from the time that you go to bed. And a lot of times you're waking up during the night to check blood sugars and drink a juice box or whatever it might be. So it's really, really easy to get burnt out among all the other stressors of life that there already are. So as a kid and as a young person growing up with diabetes, this was never really something that I personally experienced, but it was things that I had heard a lot of other kids with type 1 had experienced. And, I've worked as a camp counselor. I've worked in diabetes education in hospitals. I'm an exercise physiologist, so I've worked with a lot of younger kids that have type 1 and more of like a fitness exercise perspective. And this is something that I heard so much about, but I had never experienced it. So I sort of got me thinking, like, what was it that led me toward never experiencing it? Why wasn't this something that I had dealt with? And I realized it was because of this positivity that's guided my life, hence the name of the book. But, I had kind of seen both sides of the coin. Like, I was the kid with type 1 who was being educated by doctors, by diabetes educators. And then I kind of flipped the switch when I was older and I was the educator myself, working with kids with type 1. And throughout all of that, you come to see that there's really we only focus on the negatives when it comes to most chronic illnesses. Like with type 1, you have to take insulin shots, you have to count your carbs, you have to measure your food with measuring cups, all these different things. But no one really talks about the positives. There's all these amazing things, like you gain this amazing community of people, you gain all these skills and character traits that, diabetes really made me who I am today. And I'm super thankful for it. And I'd never seen anyone talk about it from that perspective. So I kind of took it upon myself to write a book about it.
Yeah.
And kind of outline all those positive characteristics.
Yeah. And what a great resource this is for people. I mean, you go down the list, and I would say in a nutshell, it's a chapter or two discussing what diabetes is in plain language, which It's very helpful because it's a very complicated thing that I still have to get back to the physiology textbooks and look at it again and our latest understanding of things and how it all works. But I think, very quickly, in maybe about 5 pages at most, I think you break it down very well for people to understand what it is and sort of the underlying why. But really, I think the rest of the book is really just an attitude adjustment. And I mean that in a very good way. It's just saying, hey, look, you've been dealt this adversity in your life, but look at all the opportunities it's also afforded you. All the qualities that you're developing, probably a lot faster than most individuals out there who don't have such an adversity or such obstacles to overcome, and you come out on the other side so much better in so many ways. I just thought that was a really cool way of looking at it, and really, it's I think it's a wisdom that is acquired years in advance. And I think it probably takes the rest of us a really long time to start learning those lessons. And what a great head start that you can get on that sort of thing. And I just think it's awesome. Yeah, so I thank you for putting this out. And
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, I'll go down the list here. So and here's sort of the outline of the book. Like I said, it sort of starts off with a little bit of anatomy or physiology education. And then it really, there was a really good quote here right in the beginning on page 12 that I underlined, really resonated with me. I'm paraphrasing here just a little bit. It said, the struggles we all go through can be seen as challenges to conquer instead of burdens to carry. Diabetes has the power to give you so many amazing things that make you who you are and who you will become. What a great message for kids out there. And then it goes down the list of like 20 skills and attitudes out there that you really learn to acquire. Toughness, empathy, motivation, problem solving, responsibility, right? And I'm sure, talk to us about some of these things that you start to develop without explaining the whole book, but I think, kind of talk about the responsibility and the discipline part that type 1 diabetic kind of picks up on maybe a little bit earlier in life.
Yeah. And you were totally right to say earlier that the maturity and the responsibility, especially when you're diagnosed at such a young age, is really kind of thrown right at you without any sort of choice. You're giving yourself syringes full of this life-saving medication every day, and you become responsible. Like, your life is literally in your hands every day with all of these doses. Like, it is a scary thing to think about, but it also, it teaches you so much. And, like you said, without diving into all the chapters, just in general, just giving kids and just even adults with type 1 this idea that, hey, it stinks having a chronic illness. Like, I'm not going to lie and say it's a great thing, but if we can shift our mindset towards a more positive one, it's always going to turn out better. Like, I like to explain it in a more, I guess, like philosophical way of explaining how your beliefs lead to your thoughts, lead to your emotions, which lead to your actions. So if you can believe, like, hey, maybe there are some good parts of this, I really think that it can lead towards a more positive actions towards treating your condition.
Yeah. And you mentioned all the chapters, and these things are like between 3 and 5 pages. So it's really not anything that you can't very easily pick up and read. And then, so for each of these traits, you give kind of a case study. You give a little testimonial from someone between, I don't know, like the age of, most of them are between the age of 12 and 20 or something like that. So
I think the youngest was probably like 7 or 8. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. 7 or 8. And just how, so, for instance, talking about discipline, how, and you ask an individual a couple of questions, and the main one for that person in that chapter is, how has type 1 made you more disciplined? And they kind of go down the list of all the management and the routine and everything that they've gotten themselves into and how it's helped them in their life. And you should make a follow-up version of this book in 10 more years and with all the more perspective from these
Yeah.
people, right? And they say like, oh yeah, I got this great job and I'm doing great. And it was that experience was a huge building block for me.
Right,
And
right. That was one of the
really
big things
neat.
too, was hearing from having the readers hear from people who were like possibly in their age. So like coming from me, it's always great coming from someone who has had the experience living with type 1, but hearing from someone who is living exactly what they're living rather than someone who has lived what they're lived, I think is a really, really powerful thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Um, and then one more thing I'll just say, I think that you talk about these hard skills that you sort of pick up. Now, I think we're talking about organization and discipline and things like that. But I think there were some other ones too that were really interesting that I think it takes a lot of people many, many years to get to. I think one of the chapters is on empathy. Another one is on composure and understanding the things that you can't necessarily control, but kind of, keeping your wits about you and carrying forward with it. Levity, I think, was another one. Not taking yourself too seriously, and those I think really resonated with me. And those are just lessons I think that it took me probably a lot longer to learn those, and I'm still learning. Compared to perhaps some of the people that you interviewed who were in their teens, things like that. I just think that's a really cool thing, and what a great thing to pick up and read. If you're a kid struggling with this, so I would have to say, if you're a parent and you and or your family are struggling with this a little bit, check it out. Um, Positively type 1. uh, Sorry, I don't want to block your name there, Nick. um, so yeah, I mean that's what I took away from it, I love that you've put this out there. Is there anything else about it that you were aiming for that we haven't really touched on?
No, not really. I mean, I think that kind of covers all the bases. But yeah, kind of like you were just saying before, I think it's really, really cool. Just like what really inspired the book was being at these camps with all these young kids with type 1 and working with them in the hospitals and everything, and just seeing how, like obviously I saw these things in myself and I lived them, but really what inspired the book itself was seeing them in all the kids that I work with, just how
Yeah.
mature and how they could really tackle something so serious with such humor and levity and not taking themselves too seriously. And we're at diabetes camp and people are making jokes about their insulin pumps and syringes and all this stuff, and it's like it's all these jokes that people without type 1 would not understand at all, but like it's the funniest thing in the world to us. It's like this our own little community, so I just thought that was really cool.
It is. That's great. So I think you mentioned a little bit about how you have educated in this area. You mentioned the camp that you were a counselor at. Can you tell us a little bit more about just your experience with, in the world of wellness and sort of how you got to where you are and the sorts of things you're involved in right now?
Yeah, sure. So obviously my diagnosis with type 1 was kind of my intro into the world of health and wellness, because when you live with a chronic illness like this, you have to be so in touch with how you're feeling, how you're moving, what you're eating, everything about your health and wellness kind of comes to the forefront. So just living with that from age 4 until I got to college, kind of what sparked my interest in anything and everything health and wellness, and my fascination with anatomy and human movement and biomechanics and all these different things. So that led me to studying exercise science and sports medicine.
Mhm.
And I originally was more into the world of like strength training and coaching and, Olympic lifting and powerlifting, kind of these more intense movement modalities. And then over the years, I kind of got into this world of just rather than diabetes burnout, just general burnout, and kind of started dealing with some more chronic stress based issues, some gut issues, things that really forced me to slow things down and get into the world, come out of more of the clinical world of exercise, clinical exercise physiology, and get more into the holistic world of everything from nutrition to spirituality to, body work. I'm fascinated with manual therapy, which is what brought me to you in the first place. Um, Holistic health coaching too. So that's kind of part of what I do on the side. Is I work as an integrative health coach. I'm working with a really awesome holistic wellness center right now in Washington, D.C. It's called Got Your Back Total Health. And we're a fully integrated medical center. We have a nurse practitioner, a chiropractor, health coaches, and I'm sort of in charge of kind of the whole movement training aspect of things. So I'm coaching, I'm prescribing corrective exercise, I'm doing x-ray reports, all kinds of fun stuff. And I just love to learn. So I'm always, always reading books, always doing online courses and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, Nick and I kind of go down the rabbit hole sometimes. For those of you watching, we get into deep conversations, and it never ends. For us, talking about all these different elements of wellness. Can you? Where is you have a website, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What is the website? Your latest website right now?
So right now the website is blueprintwellnessllc.com. So that might be changing in the future, but you'll always be able to reach me there. You can reach all my social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I love, like we talked about, the whole humor aspect of things. I love trying to kind of, people are very doom and gloom when it comes to health in the world today. So I try to kind of bring levity to it and make it fun and inclusive for everyone. So I'm always posting, silly little videos and posts and pictures of food, all kinds of good stuff. So yeah, feel free to follow me on any of those. And blueprintwellnessllc.com is the website.
Super. And I guess we'll wrap it up with my favorite question to ask everybody. What words of wisdom would you offer out there for any younger and aspiring professional, probably in the same area in which you are working, or just in general, to just have a successful and impactful career? What would you say to them?
Oh, it's a tough one. So what I would probably say, this kind of goes back to the whole chronic stress burnout thing that I was talking about before, but there's just so much information out there now, from the articles, books, videos, classes, online courses. Like, it's so overwhelming. And throughout my college career and afterwards, I kind of got caught in this trap of constantly wanting to learn, and just being fascinated with all there was to know. But it wasn't until I graduated from school and it all hit me like, wow, I don't really know how to apply much of this. So my biggest tip for young health professionals is to just go work in the gyms, go work in the PT clinics, get as much experience as possible, because that's really where the learning is, and where you really see where you want to take your practice as a professional. So like, if I hadn't taken the time and effort during school to work as a PT tech and be a camp counselor and intern as an exercise physiologist, like, I would be so lost right now. So I'm super thankful for that. But yeah, experience is key, to sum it up, really.
Great words of wisdom. Right. Well, I think we talked about how to track you down. BlueprintWellnessLLC.com for now. And you can find Nick Kundrat on social media, and this is his book, Positively Type 1. How living with a chronic illness can be your most powerful motivator for an extraordinary life. And it's really, just a great asset, and something that can really be helpful to individuals and families who might be struggling a little bit. So Nick, thank you so much. We really appreciate having you here and lending your knowledge and wisdom to the rest of us and our community.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the kind words. This was great.
Well, they're well deserved. Thank you all for tuning in again and watching. And we hope you have an inspired day. Stay tuned. We'll see you around. All right, I'm ending it here.